Thank you very much for the kind invitation to speak to you about artificial intelligence to detect and diagnose keratoconus. I'm representing the Life Foresight, MESCA Foundation, and ELSA Institute, all three in Switzerland, and the Tashkent International Medical Center in Uzbekistan. Hello, my name is Nikki Hafezi. First off, I'd like to explain to you what is keratoconus. So keratoconus is an eye disease that affects the cornea, which is the outer section of the eye. And when you're born, the shape of your cornea should never change from birth to death. And in a normal cornea, it's shaped like a ball, so very symmetrical, very even. When you have astigmatism, that means your eye or your cornea is shaped like an egg or American football. And as you see in this picture, it's very symmetrical. And astigmatism can easily be corrected with spectacles. However, in the case of keratoconus, the cornea changes shape, and with the changes becomes an irregular shape. And so this should never happen. So this is a compromised diseased tissue where there's weakening in certain points. And so to better understand what it is to live with keratoconus in a progressive state, we asked one of our patients to explain to us, we asked one of our patients to explain to us and to show to us what they're actually seeing. Sorry, technical. So as you can see, the cornea is actually the window of the eye to be able to see the outside world. And when it's warped, as it is in keratoconus, these are the images that a keratoconus patient sees. So it's severely disabled and to the point of becoming legally blind. And so the challenge that we face is that keratoconus is still considered a rare disease. This paper from the American Journal of Ophthalmology was published in 1986, and there were problems with this particular publication. Number one, it was only looking at a homogeneous population group in Minnesota. And the second concern they had was this publication was produced in 1986, but it collected data for over 40 years. So we're looking at the diagnostic tools of over 100 years ago. And so the combination of a homogeneous population as well as low technology to diagnose this disease contributes to this problematic situation. And so our group, along with many other clinicians, have bound together to question whether or not keratoconus is a rare disease. And we anticipate that it is not. So in a publication that we have done based on a prevalent study in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, we looked at a population group of children in 5 different hospitals, in non-ophthalmic hospitals. And we screened them using a corneal topographer, and we found 1 in 21 children that were seen had keratoconus. And that's definitely not a rare occurrence. That's 4.7% of the total population in Riyadh. So we took this particular study, like I said, in the British Journal of Ophthalmology, and treated it as our pilot group. And so we presented this paper to a group of clinicians within the Life Foresight Foundation, and this spearheaded a global prevalent study to study the actual occurrence rate of keratoconus in the pediatric population. And as you can see, there are many sites that are collecting for this trial, or not this clinical trial, this prevalence study. And we're finding more and more proof that keratoconus is not and should not be considered a rare disease. So the question is, how do we actually diagnose keratoconus? Going back to the 1986 Kennedy paper from the American Journal of Ophthalmology, the technology was very basic back when they were diagnosing. And they were using what was called skiascopy, which is a scissor reflex. So more or less, they take a light and they shine it across the cornea and to see if there's any irregularities with the cornea based on this light. The problem here is that it's very subjective and it's dependent on the knowledge and the experience of the clinician who's doing this light reflex study. In current settings or in modern clinical settings, we have what you see in front of you, and that's a corneal topographer. And it's large, it's heavy, and it's stationary. And of course, it requires electricity, and it's very complex. And naturally, it's a lot more expensive than something like skiascopy, where it's a light that's being shown into the eye. So we have several challenges involved with these types of technology. So the first challenge is the most obvious one, and that's access to reliable diagnostics. Although we have state-of-the-art technology that's proven to be reliable to detect keratoconus, unfortunately, there's an economic barrier that prohibits a majority of the population to be able to access this diagnostic tool. And so we're left with just a few percentage of the population doctors who are able to administer this type of diagnostic tool. The second challenge that we have is really the clinician's expertise. And this is not just limited to the ophthalmologists that have access to or that don't have access. We also find, unfortunately, that people with the technology do not always know how to use it. And so this is a critical, fundamental issue. So before I start with this particular study or this particular video in my next slide, I wanted to demonstrate to you that what we're doing in the field to be able to detect keratoconus. And the population group that we focused on in the video that I will just show you is in a high-risk population group. The first group is really pediatric population, because we see that the most aggressive form of keratoconus is with children. And the second group that has a high prevalence is the Down syndrome community, because they have connective tissue problems, and the cornea is nothing but connective tissue. So let me show you a little bit about what we've been doing in the field. So as Professor Hafezi stated, the real challenge that we face in the field is this image capture. So not only are we looking at limited technology because of economic barriers, the knowledge and expertise of people using the equipment, but we're also looking at the technology in general. So the amount of time it takes to be able to capture a high quality image to be able to make a diagnosis. So these are the three challenges that my team is facing to be able to develop a technology that would be able to overcome all of these three hurdles. And it's part of our portfolio of what we consider simple, mobile, affordable, reliable technology. And this particular device we call now is SBK, or a smartphone-based keratograph. So my team consists of two engineers, and these two engineers, they're a software engineer and a hardware engineer. And what they've done is, with a panel of ophthalmologists, we have stripped down corneal topographers in the field to be able to understand what are our essential pieces to be able to provide a high quality device for, at first, diagnostics, and then eventually, or first screening and then diagnostics. And so what we learned is we need to be able to have these placido rings to be able to make it the image on the cornea to be able to test whether or not that there are any irregularities. But what we could do was basically take all the computation power and the algorithm to be able to do these type of computations and measurements into a commercially based smartphone. We can also use the camera that is in the smartphone to be able to capture the image. And so everything else is just casing. And so we know that we can use this particular device within a clinical setting, but also it's important for us to take it outside of a clinical testing for screening events outside of any hospital settings. And so I will show you the video again of Christian demonstrating of how our working model of our SBK is working with patients. And please note that this part is a headrest. This is the smartphone that is just hooked up by wire to our handpiece. And this handpiece can be either obviously a handpiece or connected to a standing unit to be used in the clinical setting. And so again, Christian is placing the headrest against the forehead to be able to get stability. And he's adjusting it with the wheel. And then placing the third point onto the cheek of the patient, again for stability. And then once he's ready, he tells the patient to open his eyes. You'll see a green light, and then the image is captured. It takes 1 second. So again, this is it's a multi-use function. So one, you can do it handheld, or you can place it on a brace to be able for a tabletop version. And this is more or less the image that you see when you're taking the picture. So once this light goes on, you press the button like a gun, and it takes a picture and stores the image into the telephone, which then later goes to the cloud. If you're in a remote location, these images are stored in a reading center. And so you can ask, or you have corneal specialists that are reviewing each of the images, and each image has a unique identifier to be able to identify the patient if they need to be seen by an ophthalmologist as a follow-up. Oops. And when we first received our clinical feedback regarding our study with our SBK, these are two devices that are in the field that are able to do computation for diagnostics. That's an MS39 by CSO Italia and a Pentacam by Oculus. And the Pentacam is right now the gold standard of diagnostics for cornea. And as you can see, when you look at the SBK and the images that we capture, it's very similar. This was actually surprising for us during our first try with our device. But that became very promising to us as a screening tool, because we are a fraction of the cost, we are half the size, and we're able to capture very similar images, at least for screening. In terms of diagnostics, this is left to be seen. And of course, I don't like to promote anything unless I test it. And so what I've done is I've taken this working model, and we went into Morocco, where we have one of our clinical sites, and we worked with our partner organization there, and we screened 800 children. And we didn't just screen for keratoconus, we were also screening for all other types of visual impairments. And I wanted to show you what happened. So we were dealing with children under the age of 18. And when the children actually saw this device, they were quite excited about it because it involves things that they know. They know the smartphone and they know video equipment. And so they were all excited to try it. And in terms of compliance, it was very easy because it was comfortable. There was no invasive treatment, and it was very cool because they could see an automatic response. When the light went off, it went green, and it took the image, and they were happy. So they did a good job. So in terms of field work, we're very positive. And also capturing the data is very easy and quick, so we can do this very easily with low-skilled people who would be able to simply take a picture of the eye using this model and storing the data for later evaluation. Oops. And so last but not least, I want to show you a video. Oops. I want to show you a video of the latest projects that we're doing in Uzbekistan. And this particular video, we tried something new, not just in Uzbekistan, but in Central Asia. We worked with the Down Syndrome Organization to be able to put together an event to, again, screen for keratoconus. But in this particular situation, we know that we were dealing with many families that have not had regular ophthalmic checks and maybe had not so great experiences working with doctors for whatever reason. And so our strategy to start was to throw a party for them, for their families, to celebrate these children and to be able to introduce both the children and the parents to the importance of eye care. So we combined not only a sense of screening, but also a sense of education. So I would love to share with you this video. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very looking forward to giving a follow-up regarding the status of our working model as we're able to capture data to be able to later feed into our SBK, so it will eventually blossom into a diagnostic device that is reduces the need for higher education and for screening and for training of this device to be able to utilize in the field. So thank you very much. My name is Nikki Hafezi.